The parade has started. He's out of the car.
This was not planned. It was not scheduled. Golly, Bob, how about that?
It was nearly 50 years ago that the newly elected Jimmy Carter broke with convention and walked to the White House, signaling a new era of openness after the painful Watergate scandal that toppled Richard Nixon.
I'm a Southerner, and I'm proud of a heritage that shows concern for the working men and women.
The born-again peanut farmer from Georgia was a political outsider whose folksy charm paid dividends at the ballot box.
Governor Carter from Georgia, running for president. I want to ask you to help me next year.
First as governor of his home state, and then winning the Democratic nomination for president in 1976.
My name is Jimmy Carter, and I'm running for president.
Hello, everybody.
Once he got to Washington, though, his outsider status played against him. Unable to persuade a bare-knuckle Congress to approve his plans for consumer protection, labor reform and health care. Instead, it was the international stage that provided him the platform for his greatest political achievement. In September 1978, Jimmy Carter invited the leaders of Israel and Egypt to his presidential retreat at Camp David. It was an extraordinary 13 days that followed. President Carter used perseverance, negotiation and sheer will to forge an agreement no one before had imagined possible, let alone achieved, a peace deal between the Arabs and Israel.
To these two friends of mine, the words of Jesus, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be the children of God."
But at home, with an economy in the doldrums, he couldn't find peace with the American people.
Gasoline shortages are spreading across the country. Closed gas stations are becoming increasingly common.
Spiraling oil prices brought petrol shortages across the country. But his decision to point the finger at voters would cost him dear, as they, in turn, asked why their president was blaming them and their consumer culture for the nation's woes.
Too many of us now tend to worship self-indulgence and consumption.
But the ultimate blow for his presidency came from an event that haunts America still.
The U.S. Embassy in Tehran has been invaded and occupied by Iranian students. The Americans inside have been taken prisoner.
After President Carter decided to allow the ousted Shah of Iran to the U.S. for medical treatment, militant students of the Islamic Revolution stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, and 52 Americans were held hostage for 444 days. The crisis then compounded when Jimmy Carter ordered a rescue mission that ended in disaster, a crash in the desert that left 8 U.S. commandos dead. Carter persevered, eventually brokering a deal with Iran to release the hostages, but by then it was too late. Voters had turned against Jimmy Carter for his perceived weakness, and Ronald Reagan, a Republican, was elected in a landslide victory.
Is there any word about the hostages? Have they taken off? Any word from the hostages?
I could have destroyed Tehran with one military strike. But had I done so, I don't have any doubt that every hostage would have been assassinated. So I had to be patient for 14 months, I think with the appearance in some people's minds of weakness, but eventually my prayers were answered and every hostage came home free and safe.
It was Carter's work post-presidency, though, from building homes for the poor to his advocacy of human rights, that undoubtedly has earned him the highest accolades.
Any problem at all with their government?
That is a wonderful story.
When Jimmy Carter was interviewed by Channel 4's Jon Snow, he'd been out of office only 4 years, but had begun arguably the most productive period of his public life.
So we're building about one house per day for people who don't have homes without interest. The Bible says you shan't charge interest to people who are poor. So we believe in biblical economics.
The deeply religious Christian, reborn this time as social reformer and humanitarian, who dedicated himself to helping the disadvantaged. It was that mission, as well as his ongoing efforts to find solutions to international conflicts, that earned him the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002.
Mr. Carter, can we have some questions, please?
But Carter failed to broker a peace deal between the Israelis and Palestinians later that same decade, when he famously visited the town of Ramallah in the West Bank and met with a senior member of Hamas, to the anger of Israel.
But I'm not a negotiator. I'm just trying to understand different opinions and provide communications between people that won't communicate with each other.
He would show that same determination when he was later diagnosed with liver cancer in 2015 that spread to his brain.
I just thought I had a few weeks left.
Miraculously, he recovered and, despite old age, continued to tirelessly pursue his projects, building homes for the underprivileged, even as his own fragility began to show. Taking a tumble in 2019, he still refused to slow down. But without doubt, one of Carter's most enduring legacies will be the partnership he shared with his beloved wife, Rosalynn, to whom he was married for 77 years. So important was she to Carter that Rosalynn was often invited to cabinet meetings during their years in the White House. And when she passed away in 2023, then 99-year-old Carter attended the memorial service despite having been placed in hospice care himself earlier in the year. He was determined to be there for her till the end, describing Rosalynn as my equal partner in everything I ever accomplished. As long as Rosalynn was in the world, I always knew somebody loved and supported me.
So wonderful to see both of you. Thank you for talking.
In an interview to mark their 75th wedding anniversary, Carter was asked what he was most proud of, and notably spoke for both of them when he answered.
Well, we're very proud of having been elected and having served as president. That's the epitome of our lives, I think. I would say that we did what we pledged to do in the campaign. We kept the peace, and we obeyed the law, and we told the truth, and we honored human rights. Those were the things that were important to me.